I mean to do this video for a while, and somebody came on to, I think it was the Octopus Thread yesterday, and said that Saturn and Satan are the same thing. Now, this is absolute, utter, monumental bullshit. And even with the most basic research beyond Christian identity, which is what the roots of the alternative and truth movement is, Southern Baptist, Southern Pentecostal Christian identity, it's easily disproven to not to be true. But however, the planet Saturn is a remarkable planet and does have strange, strange anomalies, it must be said. Now, this person said that Satan comes from Saturn, comes from Satan. Okay. First of all, Saturnus, who is the Roman version of the Greek god Cronus. It represents the rotation of time and the cycles of time in terms of being a fertility cult. That's all it is. The Saturnalia was the original Christmas, and that's why when the Second Temple rabbinical Jews came to the Roman Empire and created Christianity, they had to, like I've spoken about so many times, they had to incorporate pagan festivals or change their own festivals to meet up. So the one that they did was they did was Saturnalia. So they took Saturnalia and renamed it Christmas. Now, Saturnalia in ancient Rome was a festival of parties, a festival of Thanksgiving, a festival of sacrifice. Now, again, the Second Temple rabbinicals called themselves Christians, were anti-sacrifice because they tried to portray that all sacrifice cutting women's throats and burning them. This has been going on since the Old Testament. And I'll get back to that in a second. Sacrifice just means giving up something as an offering to a god. And this would be done at the temple of Saturn. Yeah, sometimes they would kill chickens and they would kill lambs. Most times it was things like money, food, things for the poor. Now, the Christians continued that with handing out the plates. There was no congregationalism as such within paganism. There were festivals, and at the times of the festivals, you gave sacrifice. Very often, it was money to the temple to help build reconstructions and things like that. The thing is, it wasn't done every week, and it wasn't mandatory like it is in Christianity, where they pass the plate around the church among the pews, and you're expected through a combination of guilting and ridicule to put the money in there. Like when I was growing up, I grew up in the poorest part of Dublin, most disadvantaged part of the city, in high-rise slums. And a letter used to come to the door every week from the local church. You were expected to put money into the envelope for the local priest who lived in a luxury house in the middle of this rundown ghetto, handing the letter out to people who hadn't got a pot to piss in. And then these are the motherfuckers who say they ended sacrifice with the death of Jesus. This is why I've got so much resentment in me to this stuff. It's not based on anything that, I didn't get money from my communion or something like that. These people genuinely damaged the Western soul and corrupted and perverted and destroyed us as a people in many ways. And they took what was good and perverted it. And Saturn is one of those things. Saturn and Cronus is about fertility. Now, people will point to artworks of Saturn that were created much, much later by Christian artists, of him eating his babies. And that was also factored into the Greek aspect in terms of Saturn being Cronus, the god of time. That was allegory and parable to represent that the child who was born, the calf who was born, the lamb that was born, the seed that sprouts, will be destroyed by time and come back again. So even a child will, they had a much healthier relationship with death. They said, you will die, but you will come back. All life returns, just as the tree brings back its leaves in the spring. That's how it worked. It had nothing to do with eating babies and sacrificing babies or anything like that. Just because Saturn sounds like Satan does not make it Satan. Now, here's another thing. The term Satan is extremely recent. it really is probably only about 1,000 years old, if even that. And it comes from a Proto-Arabic term meaning the opposer or the adversary. That's all it means. It doesn't mean a devil with horns or anything. It means someone who has an issue with uh, religious proselytizing or jihad, or what do I call evangelicism, a problem with that. They're opposed to it. They are against it. That's what the term satanic means. It doesn't mean anything else, okay? That was later applied to a fictional creature called the devil, who doesn't exist. Now, because there was no shadow in Christianity, because Christianity is all shadow. It's particularly the old stuff. Maybe there's good things when the concept of Jesus sacrificing and dying for pure sins, but that's all a corruption of earlier parables such as Orpheus and Dionysius. It's all pagan, and I'm telling you. Now, Saturn, before I get to the strangeness of the planet Saturn, okay, where this idea of Saturn becoming evil comes from is from the Old Testament. The Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Aramaics worshipped the planet Saturn, and called it El. Okay, that was their god, El. There was one of the gods, they were pagan pantheon. One of the gods they venerated was El, and it was represented in the sky by the planet Saturn. Okay, when the Hebrews came along and said there's only one God, just like they did with Molech, another pagan god, they turned El into an evil devil. Just like they did to all the pagan gods everywhere in the world. They turned him into an evil devil. And that's where this assumption that Saturn and Satan it came into this notion that they're somehow connected. For starters, they didn't call it Saturn, they called it El. Also, the large temple of Saturn in Rome is near the Forum, is from about 400 BC. Now, to have built a temple of that magnitude shows that the Saturnalian cult was probably already the better part of 500 years older or more prior to that. So therefore, to even say that Satan is Saturn when the term Saturn is probably older than the Bible, than the Bible itself. Actually, it is older than the Bible. It's much older than the Bible itself. Is just ridiculous. Again, it comes from Christian identity in the Bible Belt in America, which is the foundation of the spiritual distortions within the so-called truthers and the truth movement and the alternative scene. You're regurgitating Christian identity from the 1960s and 70s. Rednecks with guns and hillbillies and things like that, who were waiting for Gog Magog and the end of the world. This stuff, okay? Now, having said all that, Saturn is a remarkable planet. It's the lowest magnitude planet we can see with the naked eye. Therefore, it was in ancient times the fifth wanderer. Okay, 5 pentagram. They can also connect Christianity or Satanism to that as well. Saturn, the planet itself is very, very strange. There is a hexagram on top, which you can fit in the hexagram of, well, the hexagon fits in the hexagram. It's in my book, Sorcery, Invocation, and Strangeness. The Star of David, what you want to call it, on the top, on the north pole of this planet. It's recently been discovered that the planet has a strand of strange geomagnetic energy that flows directly into the sun. It's almost like it's the sun's fetus. It's really weird. Of course, it has that stunning ring around it, okay? It has just been announced they found 20 more moons around it. Yes, the planet has remarkable capabilities. If anything, it's to be venerated as a powerful planet because it represents the Saturnalian cult. So when you're having your Christmas dinner and your feast and you're giving out presents, you're celebrating a pagan festival, Saturnalia. You will get endless Christians saying it was a murder cult, a death cult, a sacrifice cult. All it was a good time. A good time and the cherishing of being alive. That's all it was. Satan does not appear in the Bible until much later editions. It has nothing to do with Saturn. Lucifer never appeared in the Bible until a mistranslation in the King James Bible. And Lucifer is a pagan god. Saturn is a pagan god. And you're still falling for the lies and distortions that was spread by these fanatics, these zealots coming out of the Syrian desert. About 200 AD, smashing hammers, murdering anyone who stood in their way, and eventually being so psychotic that they were recruited by the Roman Emperor Constantine in the same way the Americans recruited the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. The fanatic and the zealot was seen as the ideal psychological and spiritual state for military control. Turn them all into maniacs who are fighting for an imaginary god, incorporate their previous war god, monotheistic tradition of Mithraism that was most popular religion in the army which was a Persian god. You see, they see how the paganism is. The Romans didn't go to war against Mithra, they incorporated Mithra. They didn't go to war against Kronos, they incorporated and renamed it Saturn. This is what paganism is. Paganism adapts and sees new archetypes and new possibilities within other cultures. So Saturn is not Satan. You're really wrong about that, and it's very easily disproved. And again, it's a legacy of ignorance, and the whole thing that truthers love sounds like is like. Thank you.